Hi, welcome back to my channel. On this episode of Barbie Basics, I'm going to be talking about powder, contour, and highlighting. Stay tuned. Okay, so let's start talking about powder. There's plenty of different kinds of powder. I prefer a more loose powder for myself, but I have used pressed powders in the past. It all kind of depends on what look you're going for. A loose powder is going to be a lighter finish. A pressed powder is going to be a higher coverage. My favorite loose powders, I really like this Lancome one. It's in the shade Translucent. There are only 2 shades, which is kind of unfortunate. This is great. It's very finely milled. It's not very heavy. And you know, Lancome is a more high-end brand, so it is a higher price point. For drugstore, I like the Maybelline Fit Me. This is great. Pretty finely milled. I've had no issues with this. I've always liked it. I use that sometimes. And then right in between both of those, I like the Too Faced powder. This one has hyaluronic acid in it, so just like the rest of the Born This Way line, it's going to attract more moisture to the skin, so it's not going to be as drying as your traditional powder. So those are my favorites. As you can tell, I prefer a more loose powder just because my skin is more dry. I feel like a pressed powder can really cling on to dry patches, so these are better for me. For pressed powders, I've used the MAC one in the past, the Studio Fix. It is pretty full coverage. It's around like $26, I believe. I've also used the Chanel one, which is my absolute favorite. It is on the pricey side. Some Ultas do carry it. And I also like the Bare Minerals, surprisingly. Bare Minerals gets a lot of flack, but their loose powders and their pressed powders are pretty good. I mean, obviously, they're a mineral brand. Alright, so let's talk about bronzer. My favorite bronzer is actually the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzers. These are really cheap. They're a drugstore brand. I have the shade Light Bronzer and Bronzer. So inventive. But these are really great. They come in a great shade range. I think there's only like about 5, but they smell amazing and they're not too orange. They just kind of give you that glow. They're great. For a more like high-end bronzer, I've used the Cover FX one in the past. I've also used the Chanel Soleil de Tan, which is very expensive, more of a cream bronzer. But obviously, since I'm more of a powder gal, I use a powder contour bronzer. On that note, for contouring and bronzing, I used to love this palette. In my last Barbie Basics, I used this. I've used this for years. I've had 2 of them. As you can tell, I've used the hell out of this. This has bronzer shades as well as contour shades. This one is going to be your contour. It's called Fawn. I believe this kit used to come in like a light, medium, and dark, but I think they only sell the light now, which is really unfortunate, unless that's only the one I've seen at the Ulta that I go to. So the contour kit is amazing. It's great. It's always been good. I do think they've changed the formula in the past few years, so check up on that, but Anastasia, I can't go wrong. You know, they are a little problematic, but their products are good. But right now, since I switched over, I'm using the Too Faced Cocoa Contour. I really like this one. If you look inside, it has highlights as well as contours. They do have a light, medium, dark of each, which is great. I feel like that's more inclusive of everyone. I like the medium and light mixed together. These are my 2 favorites. I don't really use these too much except to like dust off powder, or if I get too much like bronzer in one spot, I'll use the light one. But this is a great palette. It smells like chocolate. You can never go wrong with Too Faced. All their products are pretty great. So after I do my bronzer and contour, I like to go with my blush. My favorite blush is actually from ColourPop. These are relatively cheap. They're a drugstore brand. They have many blushes. This one is unfortunately, I believe, limited edition, but if you look on the ColourPop website, I believe you can still get it, possibly. I would check. But it's more of like a rosy pink. It's very light and natural. I do have a fair complexion, so this is great for me. If I'm not using that, I really like these Bounce and Blur. This one's called Pink Sky. It's from Bare Minerals. This one has like a little bit of a reflect to it, which I kind of like in a blush. I like to sparkle. It looks like this. It's more of a reddy pink, but because it's not super pigmented, because it's like a Bounce and Blur, it doesn't show up on your skin super dark. So that one's really great. And then another one I like is actually from Becca. I mentioned a lot of their products, but this one is a Champagne Pop and a blush duo. I'll show you. So this one has Champagne Pop, you know, the infamous highlighter that broke the internet. And then it has this blush. This is super pigmented. It is not like an everyday, but if I'm doing a more intense look and I want something way pink, I use this guy. And then on that note, with the highlights, let me get into those. Cool, so after I do my blush, I like to go on with my highlight. My favorite thing to do right in between my blush and my highlight is use this guy. His name's Tickle. It's from Benefit. It's more of a pinky highlight. It does have a gold reflect. I have it on my cheeks right now if you can kind of see it. It does have that gold reflect. This is kind of comparable to the Kat Von D, the KVD Vegan Beauty Rose Shock, which is really nice. This one's just a gold reflect instead of the pink, so it's a little less harsh. But this is great as like a blush topper and a blend to highlight. And then I really like Cookie from the same line. These came out with like those Cheek Squad palettes, but you can buy them individually now, which is great. This one is like a gold with like a silver reflect, a very basic classic highlight. This one, if you pack it on, can be very blinding, quite beautiful. I think I really like that one because it's kind of comparable to my favorite highlighter, which is the Anastasia Amrezi. This guy was limited edition. They have brought it back before in the past, but I don't know if they're going to do it again. So if they do, I'm going to get my hands on another one. This is beautiful. It looks good on like every skin tone. I'm very fair and it looks good on me. It doesn't look too harsh. And it looks great on people with a darker complexion. So good on Anastasia for that one. But yeah, this is so beautiful. I could not part ways with it. But I don't own any of the like drugstore highlights anymore. I kind of gave them away to all my friends because I'm obsessed with that. But I do like the Wet n Wild ones, and I've used some from ColourPop before, so those are all great alternatives. If you can't afford these guys, I would check those out as well. So now, since I've just done all my primer, foundation, and concealer, I'm going to go into my powder. I'm using the Lancome one. It's in the shade Translucent. I really just like a lot in my lid because I use a ton of powder. And I'm pressing my wet beauty sponge into it. I like to start under my eyes first because that is where the worst creasing is. And I'm just kind of going in there, make sure it's on my eyelid. Get my whole eye area. This usually takes me the longest because I am a powder fanatic. If you watched my first Barbie Basics, I was using that MAC Studio Fix powder that everyone used to love, which is like a full coverage foundation powder. Those are insane. I used to use the Chanel one too. I loved that stuff. But this is way more ideal and way less drying. Usually start under my eyes, go around my nose because that's where I need a lot more powder because that's where you get the oiliest first. And then I go through the perimeter of my face. I basically like to bake the oily parts of my skin.
And we're not acne too.
You hear my juicy nose? Do you hear it?
No.
I can hear it. When I like bang my beauty sponge against my nose, it's like it's really quite sexy if you ask me. And you do want to make sure your cheeks are covered because that's where you're going to put your contour and you don't want it to get muddy. This is very important. So with the leftover powder, I'm going to take this big fluffy brush. It's more like a dome brush. Anything that's left in there, I kind of just swirl across my cheeks just to make sure they're really gotten because I don't want it to muddy up my contour. Plus, it just feels good. Now into bronzing and contouring. For bronzing, I'm going in with the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This one is the light bronzer. And I'm taking a more angled brush. This one you can kind of go crazy with because it's so light. It like barely shows up. But it's a great basis to start. That way you're getting some color on your face and you're not a blank canvas. As a talented makeup artist, I often hold like 4 things in my hand at once, so don't be alarmed if you see something I haven't mentioned. It's coming, I promise. I also like to get in there between my eyebrows because that's the way my face works. And this one is nice for the jawline. The more, I feel like the bronzer color of the Physicians Formula, which I'm going in with next, a little more on the orange side. So I don't like to use this around my jawline, but this is the darker one. You can barely tell the difference. I'm taking it on a more like powder brush just because I like more of a coverage with it, and I'm just kind of going in. I'm holding it more at the base of the brush, not like the ferrule.
So you have more control?
Yeah. a little less heavy-handed that way because I don't want it to be so harsh. I like it to be more like a dust of color. And then I'm just kind of bronzing up the side of my nose with it. Under my lip. Bronze. So that's it for the bronzers. For contouring, I'm going in with the Too Faced Cocoa Contour. I just got this. I've used the Anastasia ones for years, but I'm not really into it anymore and I don't feel like it's really working for me. So I like this a lot. I'm going in with the medium contour with the light kind of mixed together. I'm using this brush. It's from BH Cosmetics. I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of slanted. Kind of goes with the sculpting of your face. And I'm going right from like my ear towards my mouth. And I'm just kind of blending it up. It's harsh, I know, we'll blend it out. Same thing on the other side. And then for my nose, I like to do underneath the tip, along the sides, and then across the tip. That way you get that like button nose. And then I really don't do too much to my forehead. I know you can't like see everything, but I just kind of go along my hairline. I'm gonna take a fluffy, something like this. This is from e.l.f. and just kind of blend it all out so it's not so whiny.
This is like relatively clean.
Contour. Really that simple. You just gotta know what your face shape is and what face shape you are trying to achieve with contouring. It's all about placement. After I contour, I like to go in with my blush. I'm using the Floating Lights one from the ColourPop collection. I'm taking it on this Real Techniques. It's the dual fiber face brush. I'm just kind of like dabbing it in and then I just kind of blend it into my contour starting from the apple of my cheek. And then I like to do my nose because it's cute. And sometimes I do my forehead too. It's really easy. This brush makes it very easy. I highly recommend this for blush. I know it's for like your whole face, but for blush, it's great. Especially if you have a big face like me. Cool, so after I do my blush, I like to go in with this highlight. It's called Tickle from Benefit. I'm taking it on this Morphe Jeffree Star brush and just kind of packing it on. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going over like right where I placed the blush up towards where I would put highlight. So kind of right through here. This has a gold reflect, which is very beautiful. It's like a blush highlight in my nose. So this kind of helps marry the highlight and the blush, which is kind of hard to do. And then I'm going in with my actual highlight, which is Cookie. Same thing from Benefit. This is the Jaclyn Hill brush. It's the same. They're both Morphe brushes, let's be real. They're just branded. I'm taking this on my cheekbone, on the highest point of my face. Now this one has a more gold to silver reflect. It's very beautiful. It's very blending if you pack it on. I also like to do my Cupid's bow. A little on my forehead and then a very little on my chin because, you know, I do have acne there, so I don't want to highlight it. That's a very big thing to mention. If you have acne on your cheekbones, a more textured powder highlight might not be the move for you. But for me, right now, it is. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. Next week, I'm going to be talking about eyebrows and how I do them. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you get the notification for when that is uploaded, as well as follow me on social media. I'll be posting about it there, and I will see you next time. Bye!